The fallout from the incident spread quickly, rippling through the neighborhood like a shockwave. People talked about it everywhere, in shops, on street corners, and even in hushed whispers inside homes. The video of Greg's unprovoked attack on Maya and her calm yet powerful retaliation had already gone viral by the time the sun rose the next morning. Social media platforms buzzed with reactions, some praising Maya for standing her ground while others defended Greg, accusing her of provoking him. But one thing was clear: no one could ignore what had happened. Maya sat in a small office at the local FBI field office, replaying the events in her mind. Her cheeks still throbbed slightly from the punch, but she barely noticed it. What weighed heavier on her thoughts was how the altercation might affect her investigation. She had been sent to this neighborhood to gather intelligence on a dangerous drug trafficking ring operating under the radar, and now her cover was blown. Everyone in the area knew who she was, or at least that she wasn't just another face in the crowd. Her phone buzzed on the desk, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was Detective Ryan Carter, one of the few officers in the department she trusted. They had crossed paths briefly during an earlier case, and though their relationship had started off rocky, they eventually developed mutual respect. Ryan was different from most cops Maya had encountered. He didn't shy away from asking tough questions or pointing out flaws within the system. He believed in justice, even if he sometimes struggled to find it. "Agent Johnson," Ryan said, as soon as Maya answered. "I heard about what happened. You okay?" "I'm fine," Maya replied, keeping her tone neutral. "Just dealing with the aftermath." Ryan hesitated before speaking again. "Look, I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to get messy. Internal affairs is breathing down everyone's necks, and Greg isn't exactly making things easier. He's claiming you attacked him first." Maya let out a short laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Of course he is. Figures he'd try to twist the story." "Well, luckily for you, half the neighborhood filmed the whole thing," Ryan said. "There's no way they can spin this. Still, it's going to drag out. Are you sure you want to stay involved? This place isn't exactly friendly territory right now." Maya leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. Staying meant risking more hostility, not just from Greg, but from others who might side with him. Leaving, however, would mean abandoning months of work and letting criminals slip through the cracks. "I didn't come here to walk away because someone threw a tantrum," she said finally. "Besides, this might actually help. If people see me standing up to someone like Greg, maybe they'll trust me enough to talk." Ryan sighed, clearly conflicted. "You're playing a dangerous game. These streets don't forgive easily." "I know," Maya admitted, "but I didn't sign up for easy." Later that day, Maya found herself walking through the same streets where the confrontation had taken place. Despite everything, life in the neighborhood carried on as usual. Kids played basketball on cracked courts, vendors shouted offers for discounted goods, and cars honked impatiently at intersections. Yet beneath the surface, tension simmered. Some people avoided eye contact when they saw her, while others stared openly, curiosity mingling with suspicion. She stopped near the convenience store where the incident had occurred. The shopkeeper, a middle-aged man named Mr. Patel, was arranging cans on a shelf inside. When he spotted Maya outside, he paused, then stepped out cautiously. "Agent Johnson," he greeted her, his voice low. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, thank you," Maya assured him. "And thank you for your concern. I know yesterday must have been unsettling." Mr. Patel nodded, glancing around nervously. "It's not safe to be talking to anyone these days," he muttered. "Too many eyes watching, too many ears listening." Maya understood his fear. Informants and witnesses often faced retaliation for cooperating with law enforcement, especially in neighborhoods controlled by gangs or corrupt officials. Still, she pressed gently. "Mr. Patel, I need your help. Whatever you've seen or heard, it could make a difference." For a moment, the shopkeeper hesitated, his fingers tightening around the broom handle in his hands. Then he shook his head. "I can't. Not yet. Maybe later, when things settle down." Maya didn't push further. Pushing too hard could scare him off completely. Instead, she handed him a card with her contact information. "If you change your mind, Call me. Anytime. As she walked away, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Patel knew more than he was letting on. He wasn't the only one holding back. Everywhere she went, people seemed torn between wanting to speak up and fearing the consequences. It was frustrating, but she reminded herself that trust took time to build, and patience was key. Back at the precinct, Greg Miller sat slumped in a chair, glaring at the wall. His suspension had been swift and public thanks to the overwhelming evidence against him. Now he faced endless meetings with internal affairs, each one chipping away at his pride. To make matters worse, the backlash online had turned vicious, with strangers calling him every name imaginable. For once, his usual bravado failed him. Detective Ryan Carter entered the room, closing the door behind him. He didn't bother hiding his disgust as he looked at Greg. "You really screwed up this time," he said bluntly. "Do you have any idea how much damage you've caused? Not just to yourself, but to the entire department?" Greg scowled, crossing his arms defensively. "That woman provoked me," he muttered. "She thinks she's better than everyone else, strutting around like she owns the place. She's an FBI agent doing her job," Ryan shot back. "Which is more than I can say for you. Do you even realize how many people are watching this case? How many are waiting for us to prove we're not all like you?" Greg opened his mouth to argue, but Ryan cut him off. "Save it, you're done here. Just answer IA's questions and hope they don't decide to press charges. Because if they do, you're on your own." As Ryan left the room, he felt a mix of anger and sadness. Greg wasn't the first bad cop he'd dealt with, and he doubted he'd be the last. But this case felt different. It wasn't just about one man's mistakes. It was about exposing the rot eating away at the heart of the department. And Ryan knew that cleaning it out wouldn't be easy. Meanwhile, Maya continued digging deeper into the drug trafficking ring. Using data collected before the altercation, she identified several key players linked to illegal activities in the area. One name kept appearing repeatedly: Victor Kane, a notorious figure rumored to control much of the city's underground operations. Though elusive, Kane had connections everywhere, including, Maya suspected, within the police force. Her suspicions deepened when she reviewed recent arrests tied to drug busts. In multiple cases, suspects had mysteriously disappeared shortly after being detained, only to resurface weeks later without charges. Someone was tipping them off, and Greg's behavior suggested he might be involved. Maya decided to test her theory. With Ryan's help, she accessed confidential records detailing Greg's financial history. What she found confirmed her worst fears: large deposits made to his account over the past year, amounts far exceeding his salary. Combined with his erratic behavior and ties to known criminals, the evidence painted a damning picture. "This goes higher than just Greg," Ryan said grimly as they pored over the documents late one night. "He's small fry compared to whoever's pulling the strings." Maya nodded, her jaw tightening. "Then we need to take them all down, starting with Kane." The pieces were falling into place, but the stakes were higher than ever. As Maya prepared for the next phase of her operation, she knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger. Betrayal lurked around every corner, and allies were few and far between. But she also knew one thing for certain: giving up wasn't an option. Not when so much depended on seeing this through to the end. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the narrow streets of a bustling city neighborhood. Cars honked impatiently as they crawled through traffic, and pedestrians hurried along cracked sidewalks, their faces weary from the weight of another hard day. The air smelled faintly of exhaust mixed with the aroma of street food wafting from nearby vendors. It was a place where life moved fast, but trust moved slow. Officer Greg Miller sat in his patrol car, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. His uniform was slightly wrinkled, his hat tilted at an angle that made him look more casual than professional. He had been working in this part of town for years, and he hated it. To him, the neighborhood felt like a maze of trouble. Too many people who didn't belong, too much noise, and not enough respect for authority. Over time, his frustration had hardened into something uglier: prejudice. Greg's radio crackled to life, breaking the monotony of his thoughts. Dispatch gave updates about minor disturbances elsewhere in the district, none of which concerned him directly. He sighed, leaning back in his seat. That's when he noticed her, a woman standing near the entrance of a small convenience store. She wasn't dressed like most of the locals. Instead of casual clothes, she wore a tailored jacket over dark slacks, looking out of place among the faded signs and graffiti-covered walls. Something about her caught his attention. Maybe it was the way she carried herself. Confident, almost. Regal, or maybe it was just the color of her skin. Either way, Greg decided she didn't belong here. He narrowed his eyes, watching as she spoke with the shopkeeper. Her gestures were calm, measured, and purposeful. Whatever she was doing, it seemed important. Greg stepped out of his car, slamming the door behind her. His boots echoed against the pavement as he approached, his posture rigid and confrontational. "Hey," he called out, his voice sharp enough to cut through the hum of conversation around them. The woman turned to face him, her expression calm, but alert. "Can I help you?" she asked politely, meeting his gaze without flinching. Up close, Greg could see that she was younger than he'd first assumed, probably in her early 30s. Her features were striking, framed by short, neatly styled hair, but none of that mattered to him. All he saw was someone who didn't fit his narrow view of how things should be. "I'm asking the questions here," Greg snapped, stopping a few feet away. His tone was dismissive, bordering on hostile. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a badge, holding it up so he could see it clearly. "Agent Maya Johnson," she said evenly. "FBI." For a moment, Greg froze. Then his lips curled into a sneer. "Yeah, right," he scoffed. "An FBI agent? In this dump? Don't insult my intelligence." Maya kept her composure, lowering the badge slowly. "I'm undercover," she explained, "investigating organized crime in the area. If you have any concerns, feel free to contact my supervisor." But Greg wasn't listening. His mind raced with suspicion and anger. To him, this was just another example of outsiders trying to meddle in his territory, and the fact that she was black only fueled his resentment. "You think you can come down here and throw your weight around?" he demanded, taking a step closer. "This is my beat, lady. You don't get to tell me what to do." Maya took a deep breath, reminding herself to stay calm. She'd dealt with difficult people before, and she knew better than to let emotions cloud her judgment. "I'm not trying to interfere," she said firmly. "I'm just doing my job. There's no reason we can't work together." Greg laughed bitterly. "Work together? With you?" He shook his head, his lip curling further. "You wouldn't last 5 minutes in this neighborhood. People like you don't know how to handle real problems." His words stung, but Maya refused to rise to the bait. Instead, she focused on de-escalating the situation. "If you'll excuse me, I need to get back to work," she said, turning to leave. That's when everything changed. Without warning, Greg lunged forward and struck her, his fist connecting with the side of her face. The blow was sudden and brutal, catching Maya off guard. For a split second, pain shot through her cheek, and her vision blurred. But even as she staggered back, instinct kicked in. Years of training and discipline took over, steadying her stance and sharpening her focus. Greg stood there, breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling with adrenaline. He expected her to crumple, to cry out or beg for mercy. Instead, Maya straightened up, her eyes blazing with determination. Bystanders gasped, some pulling out their phones to record the scene unfolding before them. "You made a big mistake," Maya said quietly, her voice cold and steady. Before Greg could react, she moved with precision, using techniques honed during countless hours of practice. A quick jab to his solar plexus sent him doubling over, gasping for air. Another swift motion brought him to his knees, clutching his side in pain. By the time backup arrived, drawn by the commotion and the growing crowd, Greg was lying on the ground, humiliated and defeated. Maya stood over him, her expression unreadable. Around them, cameras flashed, capturing every detail of the encounter. The video would soon spread online, sparking outrage and debate far beyond the confines of the neighborhood. For now, though, Maya simply watched as other officers secured Greg, her mind already shifting to the bigger picture. This wasn't just about one bad cop. It was about exposing the rot beneath the surface, and she intended to see it through no matter what it took. Maya spent the next few days piecing together the puzzle, her mind working tirelessly to connect the dots. She knew Victor Kane was at the center of the operation, but proving it required more than just suspicion. Every lead she followed seemed to loop back to the same dead ends: encrypted phone lines, shell companies, and a network of enablers who were either too scared or too loyal to talk. Still, Maya refused to give up. She had faced tougher challenges before, and this time was no different. Detective Ryan Carter became an invaluable partner in her investigation. Though he still struggled with some of his own biases, he couldn't deny the evidence staring him in the face. Greg Miller's corruption was just the tip of the iceberg, and Ryan hated the thought that others in the department might be complicit. He wanted to believe most officers were good people doing their best, but the truth was harder to swallow. The deeper they dug, the clearer it became that the rot extended far beyond one bad cop. One evening, Maya and Ryan met in a dimly lit diner on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't glamorous, just a small booth tucked into a corner, but it was quiet enough for them to speak without prying ears. Maya spread out a series of documents across the table, pointing to names and dates circled in red ink. "Kane's operation is bigger than we thought," she explained. "He doesn't just deal drugs, he's laundering money through legitimate businesses. And guess who helps him cover his tracks?" Ryan frowned, scanning the papers. "Greg isn't smart enough to pull something like this off on his own. Someone higher up must be feeding him orders." "Exactly," Maya said, tapping the table for emphasis. "We need to find out who that someone is. If we can link Kane to other officers or even someone in command, we'll have enough to take the whole operation down." Ryan leaned back, in his seat, rubbing his temples. "This is risky. If word gets out that we're investigating our own, there's no telling what these guys will do. They've got power, resources, and plenty of ways to silence us." Maya nodded. She understood the risks better than anyone, but she also knew that backing down would only let the criminals win. "We don't have a choice," she said firmly. "If we stop now, Kane walks free, and so does everyone else involved. Is that what you want?" Ryan hesitated, then shook his head. "No, but we need a plan, something solid." The plan came together slowly, piece by piece. Maya reached out to an old contact from her days in the bureau, a tech expert named Samira Torres. Samira specialized in cybersecurity and had a knack for cracking encrypted communications. When Maya explained the situation, Samira didn't hesitate to join the effort. "I've been waiting for a chance to take down scumbags like Kane," she said over the phone. "Send me what you've got, and I'll see what I can do." With Samira's help, Maya and Ryan gained access to Kane's private messages. The data was overwhelming. Thousands of texts, emails, and voice notes detailing drug shipments, bribes, and threats. One name appeared repeatedly: Detective Alan Brooks. Unlike Greg, Brooks was well liked within the department, known for his charm and professionalism. No one would suspect him of being dirty. Maya felt a pang of disappointment when she saw the name. She had worked alongside Brooks briefly during another case years ago, and while she hadn't trusted him completely, she hadn't expected him to be involved in something like this. Still, the evidence was undeniable. Messages between Brooks and Kane revealed not only coordination, but also large sums of money changing hands. "This changes everything," Ryan said as they reviewed the files in Maya's makeshift office. "Brooks has connections everywhere. If he's part of this, it means half the department could be compromised." Maya clenched her fists, frustration bubbling inside her. "We can't trust anyone." "Not yet," Ryan agreed. "Then we keep this between us, for now." As the investigation progressed, Maya found herself returning to the neighborhood where it all began. She needed to build trust with the locals if she hoped to gather more information. This time, however, her approach was different. Instead of flashing her badge or pressing for details, she simply listened. She visited shops, attended community meetings, and joined conversations whenever invited. Slowly but surely, people started opening up. One evening, as Maya walked past a park, she noticed a young boy sitting alone on a bench. He looked about 10 years old, his clothes worn, but clean. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and he waved. 下这一切似乎没有结束，请允许我继续完成。以下是第三部分剩余的内容。One evening, as Maya walked past a park, she noticed a young boy sitting alone on a bench. He looked about 10 years old, his clothes worn but clean. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and he waved shyly. Maya smiled and approached him. Hey there, she said gently. What's your name? The boy hesitated before answering. Marcus, he mumbled, looking down at his sneakers. Well, Marcus, what are you doing out here all by yourself? Maya asked, sitting beside him. My mom works late, Marcus replied. She says it's safer for me to stay close to home. Maya nodded, understanding the unspoken fear behind his words. Many families in the neighborhood lived under constant threat, whether from gangs, corrupt cops, or both. Do you ever see strange things happening around here? She asked carefully. Things that don't feel right? Marcus glanced around nervously before leaning closer. Sometimes I see men in suits talking to Officer Greg, he whispered. They give him envelopes. My mom says not to say anything, but I think they're bad people. Maya's heart sank. Even children weren't safe from the reach of corruption. She patted Marcus's shoulder reassuringly. Thank you for telling me. You're very brave. Later that night, Maya shared what Marcus had told her with Ryan. It's not much, but it's confirmation, she said. Greg isn't working alone. Those men in suits have to be connected to Kane. Ryan frowned, pacing the room. We need to act fast. If Kane finds out we're onto him, he'll disappear and take everyone else with him. Maya nodded. Then let's set a trap. The plan was simple, but risky. Using intel gathered from Kane's messages, they arranged a fake drug deal set to take place at an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. Maya posed as a buyer, while Ryan coordinated backup teams stationed nearby. The goal was to catch Kane and his accomplices, including Brooks, in the act, ensuring there was no room for deniability. On the night of the sting, tension filled the air. Maya stood in the shadows of the warehouse, her hand resting on her holster. The sound of footsteps echoed through the empty space as Kane and two of his men entered, followed closely by Detective Brooks. Maya's stomach churned at the sight of him, his polished demeanor masking the betrayal beneath. Where's the money? Kane demanded, his voice sharp and impatient. It's here, Maya replied, stepping forward. Her tone was calm, but her eyes never left his. But first, I need proof you can deliver. Kane smirked, motioning for one of his men to open a briefcase. Inside were stacks of cash and packets of drugs. Happy now? He sneered. Before he could react, Maya gave the signal. Backup teams stormed the warehouse, surrounding Kane and his crew. Chaos erupted as shouts filled the air, and Kane's men scrambled for weapons. Maya tackled Kane to the ground, pinning him down as handcuffs clicked into place. Across the room, Ryan confronted Brooks, who looked pale and shaken. You're making a mistake, Brooks stammered, raising his hands in surrender. I can explain. Save it for the courtroom, Ryan snapped, slapping cuffs on him. The dust settled. Maya took a moment to breathe. The operation had succeeded, but the fight was far from over. Kane and Brooks were just pieces of a larger puzzle, and dismantling the entire network would require more work. Still, for the first time in weeks, Maya allowed herself a small smile. Justice had been served, at least for today. Back at the precinct, news of the arrest spread quickly. Officers whispered among themselves, some relieved, others angry. Greg watched silently from the sidelines, his suspension now permanent. As Maya passed by, he glared at her, hatred burning in his eyes. But Maya didn't flinch. She had faced worse, and won. That night, as she drove home, Maya reflected on everything that had happened. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but she knew she wasn't alone. With allies like Ryan and the courage of ordinary people like Marcus, change was possible. And though the scars of prejudice and corruption ran deep, Maya believed that light could still break through the darkness. The days following the arrest of Victor Kane and Detective Alan Brooks were a whirlwind of activity. News outlets covered the story extensively, painting Maya as both a hero and a controversial figure. Some praised her bravery and determination, while others criticized her methods, questioning whether she had overstepped her bounds. The viral video of her altercation with Greg Miller resurfaced, sparking renewed debates about police conduct and accountability. Despite the attention, Maya stayed focused. For her, this was never about fame or recognition, it was about justice. At the precinct, tensions ran high. Officers divided into factions, those who supported Maya's actions and those who saw her as an outsider stirring up trouble. Ryan Carter found himself caught in the middle. As someone who had worked closely with both sides, he became a mediator of sorts, trying to keep the peace while pushing for reform within the department. It wasn't easy. Every meeting felt like walking on thin ice, and every conversation carried the risk of escalating into arguments. Maya and Ryan spent hours reviewing evidence, preparing for the upcoming trials. Kane and Brooks weren't the only ones facing charges. Several other officers implicated in the corruption ring were also under investigation. Internal Affairs worked tirelessly to weed out bad actors, but progress was slow. Trust had been shattered, and rebuilding it would take time. One afternoon, Maya received a call from Mr. Patel, the shopkeeper she'd spoken to earlier in her investigation. His voice trembled as he asked if they could meet in person. "I have something important to tell you," he said cryptically, "but not over the phone." Curious, Maya agreed to meet him at his store later that evening. When she arrived, the shop was empty except for Mr. Patel, who stood behind the counter clutching a brown envelope. He glanced nervously toward the door before handing it to her. "This belonged to one of Kane's men," he whispered. "I found it after everything happened. I didn't know what to do with it until now." Inside the envelope were documents detailing illegal transactions, names of additional accomplices, and photos linking key players to various crimes. Maya's pulse quickened as she flipped through the pages. This was exactly the kind of evidence they needed to strengthen their case. "Mr. Patel, why didn't you come forward sooner?" she asked gently. "I was scared," he admitted, wringing his hands. "Kane's people are everywhere. If they found out I had this—" "You did the right thing," Maya assured him. "And I promise, we'll protect you." With the new evidence in hand, Maya and Ryan intensified their efforts. They cross-referenced the names in the documents with existing records, uncovering even more connections. One name stood out repeatedly: Councilman Harold Dixon. A prominent political figure in the city, Dixon had long been suspected of shady dealings but had always managed to stay above suspicion. Now, thanks to Mr. Patel's documents, there was proof tying him directly to Kane's operation. "This is huge," Ryan said as they studied the files late one night. "If we can nail Dixon, it'll send a message to everyone involved, that no one is untouchable." Maya nodded, though her expression remained cautious. "We need to be careful. Someone like Dixon won't go down without a fight. He'll have lawyers, PR teams, and probably threats lined up." Ryan smirked. "Good thing we've got you." Maya rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a small smile. Despite the gravity of the situation, moments like these reminded her why she kept going. Having someone like Ryan by her side made the burden feel lighter. The next phase of their plan involved setting another trap, this time targeting Councilman Dixon. Using information from the documents, they arranged a secret meeting between Dixon and one of Kane's former associates, who had agreed to cooperate in exchange for leniency. The associate would wear a wire, recording every word of the conversation. On the day of the meeting, Maya and Ryan monitored the operation from a van parked a few blocks away. Static crackled through the speakers as voices came faintly over the feed. "You're sure no one followed you?" Dixon's voice asked nervously. "No one," the associate replied. But I need assurances. Kane's gone and I want protection. Dixon hesitated. Protection isn't free. You'll have to earn it. What do you mean? I mean, you'll need to deliver results, keep the flow moving. Without Kane, we need someone reliable. Maya exchanged a glance with Ryan. This was it, the smoking gun they'd been looking for. With Dixon admitting his involvement on tape, the case against him was ironclad. As soon as the meeting ended, backup teams moved in, arresting Dixon as he left the building. Cameras flashed as reporters swarmed the scene, eager to capture the downfall of yet another powerful figure. Maya stepped back, watching silently as Dixon was led away in handcuffs. His face was pale, his usual confidence replaced by panic. Back at the precinct, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The arrests of Kane, Brooks, Dixon, and several corrupt officers sent shockwaves through the department. Morale was low, but so was tolerance for misconduct. Chief Martinez, who had initially resisted calls for reform, finally took action. He announced sweeping changes, including mandatory ethics training, stricter oversight, and measures to increase transparency. For Maya, the victory was bittersweet. While she was proud of what they had accomplished, she knew the fight was far from over. Corruption was like a weed. It might appear gone, but its roots often remained hidden, waiting to sprout again. Still, she allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Progress, no matter how small, mattered. That evening, as she walked through the neighborhood, Maya noticed subtle changes. People seemed less guarded, more willing to smile or nod in greeting. Children played freely in the park, and vendors called out cheerfully to passers-by. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Marcus, the boy she had met earlier, ran up to her with a wide grin. "Did you catch the bad guys?" he asked excitedly. "We did," Maya replied, kneeling to his level. "Thanks to brave people like you." Marcus beamed, clearly pleased with himself. "Does that mean it's safe now?" Maya hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "It's safer, but we still have work to do, and I need people like you to keep helping." "I will," Marcus promised earnestly. As Maya continued her walk, she thought about the future. There would always be challenges, setbacks, and battles to fight. But for every Greg Miller, there was a Ryan Carter. For every Victor Kane, there was a Mr. Patel. And for every Councilman Dixon, there was a child like Marcus, full of hope and courage. Justice wasn't just about punishing wrongdoers. It was about empowering communities, restoring trust, and creating a world where everyone could thrive. Maya didn't know what lay ahead, but she was ready to face it, one step at a time. The weeks that followed the arrests of Victor Kane, Detective Alan Brooks, and Councilman Harold Dixon brought a mix of relief and uncertainty to the city. The headlines screamed triumph, corruption exposed, justice prevails. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. For many residents of the neighborhood, the arrests were a sign of hope, proof that even the most powerful could be held accountable. Yet for others, skepticism lingered. Would real change come, or would the system simply reset itself once the spotlight faded? Maya Johnson spent her days tying up loose ends, ensuring that every piece of evidence was properly documented and presented in court. She worked tirelessly, often staying late into the night at the FBI field office. Though exhausted, she refused to let up. Every detail mattered. Every name counted. If even one corrupt individual slipped through the cracks, it could undermine everything they had fought for. Detective Ryan Carter, too, remained deeply involved. He had become a vocal advocate for reform within the police department, pushing for policies that prioritized transparency and accountability. His efforts weren't always welcomed. Some colleagues saw him as a traitor, but he didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt like he was truly making a difference. Working alongside Maya had changed him, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and the institution he served. Now he was determined to be part of the solution. One evening, Maya and Ryan met at a quiet cafe near the precinct. It had become their usual spot, a place where they could talk freely without fear of being overheard. Over cups of coffee, they discussed the upcoming trials. Kane's case was set to begin in a few weeks, followed by Brooks and Dixon. Each trial promised to be high profile, with media coverage guaranteed to dominate the news cycle. "It's going to get ugly," Ryan said, stirring sugar into his cup. "Kane's lawyers will try to discredit everyone who testifies against him. They'll drag your name through the mud." Maya shrugged, unfazed. "Let them try. I've got nothing to hide." Ryan studied her for a moment, admiration flickering in his eyes. "You're stronger than most people realize." "I'm just doing my job," Maya replied simply. "Besides, this isn't about me. It's about sending a message that no matter how much power you have, you can't escape justice." Ryan nodded, though his expression remained troubled. "I just hope the message sticks. Too often, these cases fizzle out once public attention shifts. People forget." Maya leaned forward, her voice firm. "Then we make sure they don't forget. We keep pushing, keep fighting. Change doesn't happen overnight, but it happens if we stay committed." As the trials approached, the city braced itself for drama. Protesters gathered outside courthouses, holding signs demanding justice. Supporters of Kane and his accomplices held counter-protests, shouting insults and threats. The tension spilled into everyday life, with arguments breaking out on social media and in local businesses. Even schools weren't immune. Teachers reported heated debates among students about right and wrong, fairness and bias. Maya testified, in each trial, her calm demeanor and unwavering honesty leaving a lasting impression on jurors. She recounted her experiences in detail, from her initial investigation to the sting operations that led to the arrests. When defense attorneys tried to paint her as overly aggressive or biased, she responded with facts, never raising her voice or losing her composure. By the end of her testimony, there was no doubt in anyone's mind. She was a force to be reckoned with. Ryan also took the stand, speaking candidly about the corruption he had witnessed within the department. His words carried weight, not only because of his position, but because of the vulnerability he showed. He admitted his own struggles with prejudice and acknowledged the mistakes he had made in the past. "I joined the force to protect people," he told the courtroom. "But somewhere along the way I lost sight of that. What happened here, it's a wake-up call for all of us." His testimony resonated deeply, earning nods of approval from spectators. For many, it was a reminder that change started with individuals, willing to confront their flaws and strive for better. The verdicts came one by one, each delivering a sense of vindication. Kane was sentenced to 25 years in prison without parole. Brooks received 15 years, while Dixon faced 10. Additional officers implicated in the scandal were either fired or suspended pending further investigation. The sentences sent shockwaves through the community, signaling that accountability was possible, even for those in positions of power. For Maya, the outcomes were gratifying, but not surprising. She had seen enough during her career to know that justice wasn't guaranteed, but hard work and persistence could tip the scales. Still, she allowed herself a rare moment of celebration when the final verdict was announced. Sitting alone in her apartment, she poured herself a glass of wine and raised it silently to the countless hours of effort that had gone into the case. In the months that followed, the neighborhood began to heal. Businesses reopened, and families returned to streets they had once avoided. Community meetings became more frequent, giving residents a platform to voice their concerns and ideas. Maya attended several of these gatherings, listening intently and offering guidance when asked. Her presence was no longer met with suspicion. Instead, she was greeted with smiles and gratitude. Marcus, the boy who had helped her early in the investigation, became a regular fixture at these meetings. Encouraged by Maya, he spoke up about issues affecting kids in the area, from lack of safe play spaces to bullying in schools. His courage inspired others to share their stories, creating a sense of unity and purpose. Ryan continued his push for reform within the department, partnering with advocacy groups to implement new training programs. He also worked closely with internal affairs to identify lingering issues and address them head-on. Progress was slow, but tangible. Officers who had once dismissed him as naive now sought his advice, recognizing the value of his perspective. Morning. A crisp autumn morning, Maya stood at the edge of the park where she had first met Marcus. The air smelled of fallen leaves, and sunlight filtered through the trees, casting golden patterns on the ground. Children laughed as they chased each other, their joy infectious. For a moment, Maya closed her eyes, letting the sounds wash over her. When she opened them again, she spotted Marcus sitting on a bench nearby, sketching in a notebook. Curious, she walked over and sat beside him. "What are you drawing?" she asked. Marcus grinned and showed her the page. It was a picture of a superhero, a figure standing tall against a backdrop of skyscrapers, cape billowing in the wind. "It's you," he said proudly. "You're the hero who saved the neighborhood." Maya chuckled, touched by his gesture. "I'm no superhero, Marcus. Just someone trying to do the right thing." "You are to me," Marcus insisted, "and to everyone else." Maya smiled, ruffling his hair affectionately. "Well, thank you. That means a lot." As she left the park, Maya reflected on how far things had come. The road ahead was still long, filled with challenges and uncertainties, but for the first time in a long time she felt hopeful. Justice wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't easy. But it was worth fighting for, and sometimes against all odds it prevailed. She glanced back at Marcus, who was now running toward his friends, laughing and shouting with pure delight. In that moment, Maya realized something important. The true measure of success wasn't in headlines or convictions. It was in moments like this, in the laughter of children, the resilience of communities, and the belief that tomorrow could be better than today. With renewed determination, Maya stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next, one step at a time.